Hi, my name is Alicia Andre, and I'm your student, and I teach at Century College. I'm going to include a PowerPoint along with my video. I'm just going to talk about the video my PowerPoint presentation as my final. So this topic is the importance of culture and inclusion in the ESL classroom. I'm focusing on the Karen culture because that's a large population at our college. The first picture on my PowerPoint shows some of our students, but unfortunately there isn't a Karenni or person from the Karen culture there. But I do have some links to show you some pictures of some of my students. What are some of the challenges that these refugees face? This came from the Minnesota Karen organization, and I highlighted a few facts that can be informative to us as teachers, as just to get to know this culture a little bit better and be sensitive to the challenges that they face. Life in refugee camps was very difficult. Many young men and women have suffered from different forms of abuse, such as having their villages repeatedly terrorized by soldiers from the Burmese, torturing the Karen people, and raping women. The Karen had to flee their country and had to go to Thailand, and as a result ended up in refugee camps. These students may be suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome or disorder. They have to learn completely new languages, and this creates a huge barrier for them. They're often not familiar with things that we take for granted, like transportation, winter, and things just as simple as a refrigerator. Some students must stay home to take care of their parents, or take them to the hospital to function as translators. There aren't many people that are going to translate for them. They often have to take care of their siblings if their parents have to work. This is not a big issue from my experience, but I do know when I ask some of my students, why weren't you in class? They would say, I had to take care of my parent. So it's good to ask and not assume that they're just being irresponsible, because probably they're not. They're very, very responsible group of people. Some of these refugees had interrupted schooling, and this can impact their learning in English. Refugees may have undocumented cognitive disorders. Like I said, they suffered from a lot of abuse, and there's not any documentation of this. So who are the Karen people? They live in the country of Myanmar. It's home to, I guess, 135 ethnic groups. It has a unique culture, values, history, and language. The Karen people have been oppressed by the Burmese for hundreds of years. Tensions became great during World War II. They were pushed out. They had to resettle in other countries like Thailand. They were pushed onto refugee camps and often had to move, and it was difficult lives. Then I have a link that can show you some pictures of the Karen people on the next slide, and slide 5. What are some cultural traits that teachers should be aware of? Education is highly valued and respected in the culture. They have a high regard and respect toward others. Students may miss class because they have responsibilities to family, like I said earlier. Most of the Karen speak 3 languages: English, Burmese, and Karen. They want to learn. They're quick learners, especially if they're literate in the first language, and many of them are. Some of them are, I wonder if they are or not. They are shy and often better with one-on-one communication with teachers. That's my experience. Some of them have a sense of humor and like to joke around. They often touch and hold hands, generally boys with boys and girls with girls. Boys and girls do not show affection in public. They don't feel comfortable hugging like Minnesotans love to hug and tap on the back. They don't typically shake hands, although some of them might be adjusting to our culture. Cultural traditions are very important. Some are important to them. Some are Christians and others are practicing Buddhism, I believe. That's what I remember. The Korean cultural values on slide 6. Korean families teach their children, the values of sincerity, simplicity, brotherhood, honesty, and humility. To learn more about the Korean culture, you can go to one of the links. That was a presentation I asked a student to do. Slide 7. What were their schools like in their home country? According to the Minnesota Korean organization, they want to learn English, but they had limited supplies in their home countries, books, materials, and teachers with little experience. Korean schools were started by missionaries, but the schools were not influenced by Christian education. Some qualified teachers came from these Christian organizations, but they were supported by non-Christian Korean people. They appreciated the help by the missionaries, but did not often embrace the Christian religious practice and doctrine. Some of them have. I know some of my students are quite Christian and very religious. 8. What do Korean like? They love sports, and soccer is a big one. They love music. They are social and like to be with their friends. They embrace others. Yeah, that gives you a little idea. What do we know about the language? There are 3 main Korean languages: Ga, Western Korean, and Eastern Pwa Korean. And Karenni, I don't know if that's a language. I'm still learning a little bit. There is a written script that was established by an American Baptist missionary in 1830 from the Burmese alphabet. So they do have a written language. Other cultural facts that might interest teachers. Traditionally, they do not have last names, and this can cause confusion. Their names are really unusual. Tuku, Pa, Po, those kinds of names, and there's a lot of the same ones, so that can be a challenge. They use terms of kinship or nicknames for each other that often. They don't shake hands or bow. They might greet with their right forearm, this is the way I understand it, and their left hand underneath, maybe to show that they don't have a weapon. It's a sign of respect. Do not confuse or refer to Korean people as Burmese. They have a very difficult history with the Burmese and have suffered a lot of abuse, so you don't want to say they're from Burma. Being direct is considered rude. They don't like loud speech, so that's interesting for teachers. Maybe quiet down a little bit. I think I have a loud voice in the classroom. I like to project, so I'm going to tone that down. Body language can be uncomfortable for many Korean people. Decisions are made by consensus, the group. They're very collective. They don't like confrontations or conflict, so conflicts are often approached by a group or a mediator. So, slide 11. Tips to build rapport. Use friendly greetings. Maybe when they come in the classroom, smile and come up to them and greet them. Like I said, many of them are quite shy. Smile often. Speak with a quiet and soft-spoken voice. Ask about their culture. In school or work, offer them encouragement by complimenting them on their willingness to learn. This was recommended by the Korean Minnesota organization. Do not approach issues too directly. You may need to rephrase a question if you do not get a response. They probably didn't understand your question. So those are some of the ideas that we can do as teachers to help them feel more at home in the classrooms. And then I guess there's some quotes that I would like to end with. That the James Banks Stages of Multicultural Curriculum he had some ideas about what we can do, and talked about how the mainstream curriculum is Eurocentric, and that it often ignores the experiences, voices, contributions, and perspectives of non-dominant individuals and groups in all subject areas. So the curriculum can have, of the mainstream, he says, can have negative consequences for students, and I agree. They can fail to validate the experience and perspectives of this unique group of people. It can further alienate students who already struggle to survive in a school culture that differs so greatly from their home culture. They have to come here, learn a new language, learn a new culture, and they have so many challenges. They don't have a lot of money. There are some social services, but finding those social services, parents that might not speak the language, that need help. So I think for us to be sensitive to that is really, really important. And we need to find ways to integrate and embrace their culture, because I think that additive, what can they bring? What do they already have? What can they offer, instead of looking at them as what don't they have? They do have a lot that they can offer in the classroom. So as mainstream teachers, mixing them into groups with natives and with the Americans that can learn from their cultures, and also it helps these students adapt to American culture when they have when they're put into groups. So don't avoid that. I would say encourage them, and encourage them to talk up in class. They're not going to have perfect English, and they know that, but find ways to help other students in the classroom be more sensitive to that, and that way the classroom experience will be much better, and these students will have a better chance of success. That's the end of my presentation. It's 12 minutes long. That's a pretty long presentation. I enjoyed this class. I learned a lot, and I hope you liked my presentation. Thank you.